So do we need to do the play the music ordeal? Like, is that
Yeah, we'll do
okay?
that.
Oh, there it is.
Hey,
2 Chains, but I got me a few on. You know what I'm saying, bro? We're back. Triple B
back.
in the building.
We are
Happy
back.
Nigger Belly in the building. Talk to us, Belly.
Super Bowl week. All time with Luke Wilson. This is going to be a fun week, man. We got Luke live down in Arizona. The podcast only had room in the budget to send one Luke. I made a pitch. To manager Mark. Luke made his pitch. Believe it or not, Mark chose Luke Wilson over me. I'm here stuck in Toronto. My guy Luke Wilson out in Arizona. Luke, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. It's
you in a
warm
blender,
down here
eh?
in AZ. You just put me in a blender, but we got some heat lined up for this week, man. A couple guests coming in. I'm excited.
We do. Let's just jump right into it. So we got your good friend Brett Jones joining us today. Who what can we expect for the rest of the week? Guest wise.
Yeah, so Brett's coming on here today. Later this week, we're gonna go Nick Bellore, 12-year NFL guy. One, in my opinion, the funniest guy in the NFL. I believe also in DK Metcalf's opinion, he might have said that in an interview once. Good friend of mine. Later on, we're going to go to Division I long snapper, old college roommate, very close friend. His name's Tanyan Farley. Talk about some college life, what it's like there. And we're going to end the week with Mr. Electricity himself, Jordan Roos, man, who's going to get paid this year after the year he had with the Titans. He's going to get paid.
Wait, we're getting Roos? I didn't know we were getting
coming
Roos.
on the day before the Super Bowl, man. I'm pretty amped.
So we're going to have 3 episodes this week. We got the one you're listening to right now, another one that'll probably come out Friday morning, and then I think we'll do Super Bowl Sunday. We'll put out the one with Roos now. So that's going to be
electric.
Something worth listening to. Is it my understanding you and Mark drove to Arizona?
We did about 5.5 hours. Went from LA, hung all the suits in the back of the car. You know what I'm saying? Just had a nice bro time. Mark probably wants to kill me, but we're broing out. You know, had the bike on the back of the whip, so the bike has made it to AZ. I'm going to get a ride in later today, and yeah, pretty. Day one's been in the books. Today I got a little chat about Travis Kelce, so I know a little something about tight end. Should be nice.
Very nice. Yeah, so you're down there for TSN. You're doing stuff. Where can the people find you this week? What are you going to be doing?
Mainly Sports Center. Normal Wednesday, Luke Who's Talking hit on Jay Onright, but I think we have a couple hits per day on Sports Center, and it's cool, man. I mean, it's a good little crew down here. The producer Dennis is top quality. The guy's a legend. TSN legend, bro. I love it, dude. And just detailed, organized. Like, he's a legend, man. He's really fun to work for. And we got James Duthie and Kara hosting. Mm-hmm. Kara Wags, friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod.
And then me and Davis Sanchez chopping it up. So it's been good. I think Jesse Palmer's coming in later in town too.
Oh.
Later in the week. Coming to town later in the week.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
So let's just dive right into this chat. It was a fun chat. I really enjoyed we got Brett on. You got in your journalist bag there. You carried the first 40 minutes of the interview. I just sat back and I was just watching.
I do have a confession. I have a confession for you. I have a man crush on Brett Jones, dude. I fucking love the dude.
Yeah.
And I know we're gonna hear me talk about it in a sec. It's kind of the first half was a lot of football chat, but I've always been very fascinated with Brett because what he accomplished as an NFL player out of Saskatchewan and the route that he did it, it's unbelievable. Like, even talking to him today, it's truly unbelievable. And he's so humble, dude. And he's one of those guys, he embodies what it means to be Canadian to me. But it's we don't really get into it because he's too humble. But the idea that he came from Saskatchewan to the University of Regina, to the Calgary St. Peters, to the Giants with Tom Coughlin, survived that, reign,
Regime.
if you, I mean, it was the end of it, but that regime I'm
Yeah.
looking for into another regime, into a very good, like this wasn't a bottom of the barrel Vikings team when he was there either, like a very good, and he's starting, bro.
Yeah.
Like you said it, Eli Manning, start Geno's first game he started. Like to do all
Yeah.
that, yeah, it
What?
just is like it's mind blowing to me. And he's still like the grind that it takes and all of the intricacies that he probably had to deal with. And he just still has like, as you'll see in this comment, the best attitude, super like, I just worked hard. Just like it was like nothing was insurmountable to him. And pretty, I don't know. I thought his whole story I think is very special, as I'm already gushing over my man crush Brett Jones.
Yeah, it's an incredible story, and he just so happened, like anyone in the NFL, I assume you just so happen to backdoor your way into historic moments, and there he was in 2017. He was the center of that team with the whole Eli Manning Iron Man streak. We get into that a little bit towards the end. He kind of talks about just like what the vibe around the team was. So I found that kind of interesting towards the back end of the chat as well. And yeah, let's just jump right into it.
Let's get it. Let's get him in here. Here he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Saskatchewan's finest, Brett Jones. Brett, first off, thanks for coming on. But secondly, I've got a million questions for you. For anyone who's kind of listening, Brett Jones actually met my brother before he met me, but and we'll get into that. You've kind of had a very, very interesting journey in your like football career. And one of the questions that like always gets asked to me, and it's been asked to me on this podcast, I'm now gonna flip it on to you, is at what point did you know the NFL was a realistic possibility for you?
Well, again, thanks for having me on here today, Luke. I really appreciate you bringing me on. This is a cool opportunity. So, for me, honestly, I didn't really know ever. Like growing up as a kid, I didn't super excel at athletics. I mean, I was a good player. Like I played hockey, I played baseball, I played all that stuff, and I played football. But like I didn't do super well in any of those things. It wasn't until I got to university, and that's when I realized that like I did have a lot of potential, and there would be a potential at the end of the day that I could play, whether that was at the CFL or that was at the NFL, and that was because of the teammates we had at the University of Regina. So
Okay, so
that's
that was
that's where it sort of started.
yeah, and then we're gonna this will kind of hit in the intro. We'll plug this little 30 seconds out, but um, so grew up in Saskatchewan, played high school ball in Saskatchewan, correct?
Yes, I did.
Was that regular high school football, as in like 12 on 12 Canadian style, three down?
Yes, it is. Yeah, we were a big enough high school that we had 12 on 12. So I played my grade 11 and 12 year with the high school, but before that, I played bantam football and pee wee football. So I'd played since I was 10 years old.
Okay, epic. And then you went from there to the University of Regina.
I did. Yeah, that's where I
How
made
was
the
your
move.
time there, and did you enjoy college football?
Oh, I loved the University of Regina. But football never was like a big priority for me. I always wanted to go to school, so I actually always had a dream to pursue professional college. Football was second, but once I got to the University of Regina, like I was able to start to play right away. There was injuries, and then I realized there was a chance there. So like the reason I went was just school, but it actually the best part about being in school was football. So
Uh,
it blossomed, and I had a really cool career at the University of Regina. So really
okay,
thankful I took the chance and played.
I like that. Now we go right out of Regina. We go to the Calgary Stampeders, correct?
I did, yeah. So that was my. So I got drafted in the second round. Um, I
And
had
we've
actually sort
talked
of.
about the CFL draft in this thing too, Brett. It's very strange. Like, how are you a second round pick and eventually a full time starter in the NFL? Like, it blows my mind how this happens. But maybe you can explain why you think you were a second round pick, and then talk about your first year in Calgary.
Yeah, definitely. So it's always been sort of the thing that's haunted me my whole career is I am short and I
Oh,
am wide. So like when you turn on the film, I look like a little cube out there. So that was always the thing, especially if you would watch old Canada West film from 2009 to 2012. It was a little grainy. And so especially if scouts or whatever watching that, it might have been tough to watch. But I'd actually fallen in the CFL draft because I had told teams if I got into I was applying to be a doctor and go to medical school here. So I said if I got in, I wouldn't play anymore, actually. So that's why I'd fallen in the draft that year. And so teams sort of got scared off. But In the second round, the Stampeders thought enough of me, and so they took me with the 16th pick. I was the last pick, I think, of the second round. So I was super pumped, and so I actually didn't end up getting into school. So I was off to play football. So it worked out for the best.
Nice. No question. Now, growing up, were you a big Rough Rider? Like, were you a CFL guy? The producer Alec on the show loves the CFL. We had a big chat actually last night. Were you a Rough Riders fan? Did you like the CFL? Kind of on the fence. What was your kind of vibe with the CFL at that time?
Yeah, I really like the CFL. We would go each and every week. I go with my grandma, so we would had season tickets. I would drive up from Wavering. It's an hour. I'd pick her up, and we'd take the bus. So we'd take the
That's
bus.
so tight, dude. I
Meet at
love
we
this.
meet at the mall, and we go to the game. And then we'd have pizza afterwards. So it was a big outing for her every week. It was really fun for me too. We got to go to the games. But no, that's what we did growing up in high school. And then I'd always watch the NFL. But the CFL was a great time. It was fun to go to those games. It was accessible, and it was good football. I remember
Yeah.
like we got to see like Ricky Williams was in the CFL when I was going. I got to watch Cameron Wake, so it was really
Yeah.
cool. There's some really good players at the time when I was
Dude,
watching.
that's sick. I'm amped right now. I know producer Alec is in the other room right now. With a smile from ear to ear. He's the biggest CFL fan around. Um, was there like so now you go to Calgary? I'm assuming I mean, pretty similar to the NFL. Like even though you're a Rough Riders guy growing up, you're pretty excited to play in the league. That would have been your first experience playing pro ball. How was that? Was there like a big learning curve? Did you like it? I know you weren't there for a long time because you were with the Giants pretty much a year after that. Does that sound right?
Yeah, so I played 2 years in the CFL, and then right after that, I went to the Giants. So
Okay,
but I'll just
so
backtrack a little bit
yeah.
for the with your question. The big thing for me at the University of Regina is we actually had Akeem Hicks. So
Oh
Akeem
yeah.
Hicks had
Wow.
went to the University of Regina, and so that was in my second year. He came to school and played with us, and so I had already started playing against professional talent at that point. Akeem was the best player that any
By
of us had ever
far.
seen, and probably any of
Yeah.
us will see a lot of time in the NFL. He's one of the more dominant defensive linemen,
Yeah.
and so I got to practice against him each and every week. And yeah, so that was really where I was like, if I can block Akeem in practice, which wasn't often when I was younger, maybe there's a chance I could play. And so when he got drafted in the third round, that's when I knew that I'm going to take a chance at this NFL. And I didn't really get any offers or options coming out of college, so I knew I had to play in the CFL to prove I could play in the NFL. So that was my goal. That's why I signed a 2-year deal in the CFL because that was the shortest you could. There was only a one and an option. That was the shortest. So I played my 2 years in the CFL and took my chance at the NFL. That's what it was. And so the CFL gave me that opportunity. And so I'm forever thankful for the CFL. There's high end talent in lots of positions. It's just for whatever reason they don't get a chance to play in the NFL. And so I got to play against those guys each and every week. And yeah, it was a ton of fun. And I love the CFL. And I still have a lot of friends and met a lot of great people. So
Nice. So now from again, we'll talk kind of your first 2 years in Calgary. Was there anything that surprised you either in a good way or a bad way about going to the CFL? Like, for example, I'll kind of for me, and we've talked about this on this podcast before, but like going to the NFL in Seattle is kind of everything that I dreamed of. And most of the surprises were good, where Detroit in year 6 was kind of the opposite, where I was like, holy shit. Like, and then I started thinking if I was a rookie going here, it would have been a completely different, like my viewpoint on what the NFL was like would have been wildly different. So I know what you're about to say is organization. I'm assuming it's the same in the CFL depending on where you play. But how was Calgary? I always kind of jab the CFL a little bit on here, Brett. Don't kill me because I've been told that they get 2 off days a week. It's mandatory per the CBA. So I'm like, how is it? How do they get 2 off days a week? What kind of league is this, man? Like, what was the good and bad of the CFL your first 2 years?
yeah, so for sure, the I'd say that Calgary is arguably one of the best organizations in the CFL. Year in and year out, they're always competing, always winning. And John Huffnagel had played in the NFL, so he had that experience in those things, and so he knew how to run it. So it was really similar structure-wise to what I was going to experience in the NFL. But yeah, I was just really fortunate that like they let me play, and that's the big thing. And so if you get the opportunity, like you did in Seattle, to get that chance to play and get that experience and build that confidence, have a support system with the coaches that believe in you, want you to do well, you're going to do well. And then I don't know what happened in Detroit, but I can only imagine if it's not as supportive and they're not doing those things that you need them to do. It's tough. Like, I mean, the NFL is a hard business, and it is a business. And when they treat it like a business and treat you just like, we'll move to the next guy, it's tough to find motivation to get out there, especially when you've had it so good with like a
Yeah.
great organization that believes in you, is a player, like they're player driven. Uh, and yeah, and so that's what I had in the CFL. And the 2 days off thing, again, that was one of my first like work experiences I had, was playing in the CFL. And so those 2 days off, that's just the way it was. And so if you played a Friday, then a Saturday, then yeah, you get your 2 days off. Um, but yeah, it's a, you're not going to get as many hours in a week as an NFL, but you're not paid as much either. So
Yeah, makes sense.
it's in fair, it's fair, right? So I think that it works for the CFL. It's a different league, but
Yeah.
it works for them.
We're going to chat about those differences here in a sec. But now, this is something I was always curious about that I don't know. So, you play your 2 years in Calgary. You have obviously a tremendous year there. Do you get a different, like, how would it work then for you where it's like, and this is why I've been so fascinated with you, Brett, as far as your career goes. And Bellis, this is kind of, I was talking to our host here, Luke, where it's like, imagine the odds, statistical odds to be like from Canada and go to the NFL. I don't know what those are to begin with. But now you're looking at a guy with Brett that goes from Saskatchewan, and this is not a shot at Saskatchewan, but it's not as heavily populated. I'm assuming the high school ball is not top tier. You know, maybe your high school was, but I'm saying in relative to like Texas or California, you know, you're not getting the same. It's the same in Ontario. We're nowhere near the resources, the coaches, the whatever that you're going to get in some of these big markets in the States. Then you go to the University of Regina, then to the Calgary Stampeders, then to the motherfucking NFL. And you were balling out. Like, dude, I remember being in Seattle when you were in Minnesota, and Pete would come in and kind of highlight some guys. And so we didn't do a ton of crossover. Obviously, you playing online, me playing tight end. But I remember being in the meeting and him being like, yo, like mentioning, hey, this is Brett Jones. And I was like, dude, my fucking brother like knew this guy from the CFL and his connections with Shane Bergman, which we can get into. And it was kind of a proud moment for me, like as a Canadian, because you were one of the guys that is a true Canadian. Like I talk about this all the time. There are a lot of half Canadians in the NFL whose parents were born in the CFL, you know, but they grew up in Florida. And it's like, yeah, I'm not trying to take anything away from that, but like we had different routes. And so I always thought that was cool that not only you had played in the CFL, but had gone to the NFL and were fucking balling, bro. Like was playing. You weren't hanging on. So I kind of love that, especially your journey. But anyways, back to me pumping your tires. I'm gonna get off that for a sec. Where where I found it, like what I'd love to know is, so 2 years ago, Calgary, things are going well. NFL are in your sights. Do you hire a different agent? Do you go to camps? Were you sending out CFL film? Like, how did that process work from the transition of CFL to NFL?
Yeah, so I did have the same agent. So actually, Akeem and I, we did have the same agent. So we had the same. So that was always my goal. My whole goal was to play in the NFL. So he didn't have a ton of CFL experience, but he was able to do my contract for the CFL. But yeah, so after that, we made a little highlight package, had some game tape, and so we sent it out to teams. And so I was able to work out for 3 teams. So I did 3 individual
That was what I
workouts.
was
So like
wondering. So it's kind of like
100%.
college. So and you
Well,
were
you
doing,
would have
were they
seen me on a
visits or
Tuesday.
workout?
You would have seen me on a
Yes,
Tuesday.
yes.
I was coming in. So in the NFL, I don't know, for those who don't know, they bring guys in on Monday and Tuesday each week because those are off days. So
Yes.
I was one of those guys, and so
I mean, shit,
uh,
bro. I was there in week 8 or year 8. I'm like, damn, bro, this is tough. I'm a Tuesday guy in year 8.
oh yeah,
You know,
it's, I mean, hey, there's no shame in it. You want to get out there and play again, but that's it. So I did that. So
yeah.
I had some funny ones. So we flew to Tampa one time, and I got in late, and like I get to Tampa, and I'm staying in another room with the dude for a Tuesday workout. So we were sharing a room the one night.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, so the guy was like asleep, and I just like roll in there and like, yeah, we're going to do the workout the next morning. So they come pick us up in a 15 passenger van. You do the workout, do your physical, go to the whatever it was, University of South Florida has a little hospital there, so you go do your tests or whatever. But yeah, then you work out. I also worked out for Pittsburgh, and I worked out for the Giants. So those are my 3 ones. That was how I did
Nice.
it. It was funny. They get you to do a Wonderlic at that time. And so that was sort of one of the
Okay.
funny stories I had with that. So I did a Wonderlic, and so I did the one in Tampa, and then the next day I do it in New York. And so in New York, it was the exact same Wonderlic. So I'm ripping through it. I got all 50. I got all of them done. And so after the
You got
test, I
all
go to the.
50 done?
This
I
guy's a
did
I
it
know you
well
said
genius.
because
you were going to
I
med
did them all.
school.
Yeah, so I did them all, and I go to the guy afterwards, and I said, I gotta let you know, I'm not that smart. I did this exact Wonderlic yesterday, and they thought that was pretty funny. And so we would talk with the same guy. They always have different guys that do the workouts, and like
Yes.
sometimes they don't have super important roles in the beginning, but they move up over time. And so that
Yep.
was 100% this guy. So later on in my career with the Giants, like he was higher up, and we would laugh about that story because like he was like, I was just happy you remembered that, or like could even remember the same questions, like let alone most of them. But like, yeah, so that was my workout. And so we've run 40s and do different stuff. And so like I'm coming off, what we play 18 weeks, and we played in the Grey Cup that year. So like we were running 40s in week 20 or whatever. So it was a lot, but
Yikes.
whatever. We
Yeah.
got her done, and the Giants were fortunate enough that they said, "Hey, we'll sign you to a undrafted free agent contract. Let's get going." And so that was it.
Okay, so a couple things about the workouts that I always found fascinating. So when I was coming out of college, I had a similar situation where we had some schools come down or some teams come to Rice so they could put us through workouts. And I don't know if you found, was there a huge difference between the three, Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, and New York? Because for me, like again, I feel like you'll appreciate this, but I had a workout with the Patriots, and just exactly what you would think. They basically tried to make it was me and another guy from Rice named Sam McGuffey, where it was like they tried to sit there and see who would puke first. Like we were running just go balls, posts, corners, no
Yes.
breaks. And like I could tell where I'm like looking at this coach and I'm like, this guy's trying to see which one was gonna bitch. And like it's not gonna be me. And like it got to the point where it's like run a 40-yard go. And then you run down there, catch the ball in like 15 seconds, you'd be like, post. Bro, like
Oh
I
yeah.
can't feel my legs. We're 35 rounds in. But then on the flip side, Seattle came down and did a 3 tight end workout, and it was like not a joke, but it was like let's do some footwork, let's do some blocking, let's see you come out of a couple cuts, we're done. Like it didn't even really feel like a crazy workout. They wanted to see my actual skill, if that makes sense. Where again in the New England workout, they wanted to run me square into the ground and see if I would bitch. And which, now that I kind of know the vibe of Seattle and the vibe of New England, it does make complete sense. Did that
Yeah,
happen
those
with
add up.
you? I mean, I feel like Pittsburgh's pretty hard nosed. I don't know who was coaching in Tampa at the time, or were they
George
all
Warhop.
similar style workouts? Oh wow.
Yeah, so it actually was it was unique. So like Tampa was pretty cool. That one was more just drills and skill based. I think they were looking
Mm.
to sign guys. They needed the guys to play that week at the time. So like I think they signed one of the guys that worked out with us. But then with the Steelers, that was a grinder. They were putting you through it. They were working you pretty good.
I could see that.
And
I
same
could see
and same with
Mhm.
same with the Giants.
Was Coughlin there? Was he running
Yes,
the show? Oh
this was
God.
Tom Coughlin. This was Pat Flaherty was the O-line coach, really great guy. But and again, I've talked to O-line coaches about these workouts, and like some of them, because the one assistant told me he's like, yeah, when we do these, like the coach just if it's a frustrating day or whatever it was, like he's gonna take it out on these guys doing the workouts. So like you'll get them going, fire them up. He's gonna work you. So like that, they get out like they had just finished like a walkthrough or something, and so there I am trotting out there, and they're like, let's go. And so that's how they like treat it. So it was a ton of fun. Like the workouts were cool, but like yeah, they were trying to see how bad you wanted it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, again, and later in my career, I had done a few workouts, and it got this like I had done a workout that was 30 minutes, and then I think I went to New Orleans and did one that might have been 2. Like your agent's calling you, like, how'd it go? I'm like, well, I couldn't tell you. I was on the field for 2 minutes.
Yes, literally. Sometimes you're like, yeah, this didn't go well, or it's like, yeah, they're gonna sign me. You're like, what are you talking about there? But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you just never
So
know what they
okay,
want.
Yeah, that's very true. Like, most teams keep things close to the vest. Like I left the Seattle workout pre-draft thinking there was no shot that I would ever be drafted. And when my agent told me this, like going into the draft, people were asking me, "Hey, Luke, who do you think you're gonna get picked?" I gave everybody like, here are my what I would suspect would be the top 5 teams. No one asked for your bottom 5 teams, like where you definitely not going. But Seattle would have been 100% in the bottom 5. The coach there, who's like a very, very good friend of mine, the tight end coach, like I always bust his balls these days, but he like barely spoke to me at this workout. Like I had messed up a drill, not from an athletic standpoint, from like a, what we were exactly doing. And he like gave me the whole like, half the thing is the mental side, son, and just like scoffed at me. I'm like, fuck, dude.
Shoot.
Anyways.
Yeah.
But okay, so now Brett Jones, boom. We're following the career right now. We've gone from Regina. We've done Calgary for 2 years, played in the Grey Cup, done a couple workouts, signed with the Giants. And I mentioned Tom Coughlin because I did a workout with Jacksonville, or a free agent visit with Jacksonville in year 5, and Coughlin
Yeah.
was there. And when I showed up in Coughlin, the guy who picked me up in that 15-person passenger van, the first thing he talked about was beware of Tom Coughlin. And you hear rumors in the league, right?
Yeah.
You know, about different coaches, organizations. We all chat. So I like to call it sauna chat. It's usually in the sauna with the boys.
Oh yeah.
How was it going into New York? One, into the NFL, but then two, Tom Coughlin, I've been told, runs a pretty tight ship. You got any
Yeah.
stories
Yeah.
of Tom, or do you have any stories of like your first? Like I heard he would fuck with the clocks. That was some of the
Yes.
stories. Like,
Every clock in the building was on TC time. So they're 5 minutes early.
Oh my
Oh
god!
my.
So if the meeting was at 9 a.m., it actually was 8:55.
So the clocks actually read. When it was
5 minutes
8:55 on
faster.
your
5 minutes
phone,
ahead.
it would sorry, when it's 9 on your phone. I can't even do this. When it's 8:55 on your phone,
It was
the
9 a.m.
meetings were 9 a.m. Like you'd walk in, it would say 9 a.m. up top.
Yes. TC time.
TC time. I like
DC
that.
time, Luke. How we like
Yeah.
that?
I like TC time a lot.
It was legit, yeah. But again, they're coming off 2 Super Bowl wins. They
Yeah.
did some down years. So this was the last year of Tom Coughlin, and so we transitioned to Ben McAdoo. Then we have that good year, and then we have a bad year after that. So I've had the ups and downs. So that first year I was there, I actually wasn't even there. I tore my MCL, and they sent me home. So it was in the
What do you
fourth
mean they sent
preseason
you
game.
home?
Yeah, they sent me home. That was like,
Oh.
yeah, all right, you can go home. You don't have to stay here.
Yeah,
It was
that's
This was
crazy,
wild.
and
this was
you don't
20
see
this
this
was
is 20.
2015?
Yeah, they sent me home. They're like, "Yeah, you can just go home. You're not going to play this year." Uh, and that was it. And so, again, it was crazy because, as an undrafted guy, I went from third string. Like, you get no reps when you're in the third
Yes.
string group. You got to make a play. And so it actually was really cool. So growing up, I loved the Bengals. That was my favorite team, actually. I liked the colors as a kid. And so I liked the Bengals. And so, I grew up in the Carson Palmer era. TJ Hushmanzada, Chad
Yep.
Ochocinco, all those guys. It was cool. I really love that team. And so that was actually the first preseason game. And so we traveled to Cincinnati and practiced against them. And again, all week you're getting no reps. I'm the third string kid from Canada, just trying to figure out the game from the CFL to the NFL. And so in the preseason game, we ran a couple plays where it's just standard outside zone, but I had the chance to the mic had fallen back, and so I got to I drilled them, and so I flipped them over in the play, and so I had made some pretty impact splashy blocks, and so as it kept going on, there I was just thumping dudes out there in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes left, and yeah, so that was how I moved up from those games, and so. But
Nice.
if you didn't go out there and make a splash, there was no chance. You got to show them something if you want to earn a chance. I probably would have been on the practice roster that year, but instead, no. I got the full credited season or whatever, and I spent the year at home. So it was really weird. I've never really seen that out of any other organization that would send a kid home to do that. But
Yeah, that sounds foreign.
it was pretty neat. As I saved a lot of money and I didn't, and so I was able to do all my rehab. And then the weird thing was is that the organization didn't have a ton of turnover from year to year. There's a few new coaches and whatnot, and so I was able to just impress the next set of coaches. And like, luckily it was just an MCL and not an ACL. And so like, I came back better. And like that time away, like I was able to learn the game more and practice more. Like I just needed more time, like thinking about it. That was the big thing. I just never had even thought about the differences in the NFL and CFL. And so that really helped me.
Belly's
Brett,
got one for us, and then
yeah,
I'm going to
I'm
ask
going to
him
jump in
back.
here. What's the difference between, I'll say, like the vibe of a locker room in an NFL exhibition game compared preseason game compared to a regular season game? Because to me, I would assume the preseason, you have a lot of undrafted rookies in the mix, guys that are fighting for contracts. The regular season, we're all playing for one common goal. We want to make the playoffs. We want to win the Super Bowl. But how much different is it playing in a preseason game with a roster size of, like everyone knows that cuts are coming on Monday, right?
Yeah.
So what's that process like?
You are a mercenary playing for all 32 teams. Like you're out there like,
Facts.
hey, this is
Facts.
me. This is me, and I am showcasing myself with if you guys don't want me, somebody else hopefully does. So you're going out there, and like the cool thing is like all those undrafted guys, the guys who are late round picks and stuff, like you bond in those times. Like that's where you build that friendship, that understanding of like, man, like this is us versus them. Like I know the team says they want you, but like you're always trying to be replaced. And so people know that. And so you're going to go out there and everybody's going to work together. And like, we got to find a way to win this preseason game, or I got to go out there and show them that I can play. And so you're relying on that other guy that you're competing against to do well. Cause like, if you all look good, like it's going to help everybody. And so there's a lot of camaraderie in that time. The starters, like Luke would know, those guys, they're not you for no. You
Yeah,
were
I'm kidding.
in there for a while. Like you know, like those starters, like it's cool. Like you might not be playing in the fourth quarter, so you're having a Gatorade on the
Oh
sideline,
yeah. Oh yeah. I
right?
have been there. I have been
Yeah.
there.
So that is totally foreign to me. I am always out there. You will see me in the fourth quarter. I'm going to be getting my reps in, getting out there, showing them what I got. So like, that was always cool though. You know, like the other guys that support you, I had great teammates. So like they knew that like, this is your chance. Like you got to show them or else you're going to get a
Yeah.
new guy come, end of August. There's going to be another guy in the room. So
Brett, I feel like you'll appreciate this. So my first year, I was kind of slotted to be the third string tight end, and the second string tight end blew his Achilles out. And then the first string tight end was Zach Miller, and was a little banged up in camp. So I ended up rolling out there with the ones, and we were really thin depth wise at tight end. So I got like the royal treatment as a youngster. I had to play a bunch, but it was like, yo, we're not going to put him in the whole game because if he gets hurt, we're pretty much rolling in with no tight ends right now. So it wasn't until year 7 that I had ever really played late in a preseason game. But I was in Oakland at the time, now the Vegas Raiders, and I was
yeah,
released from that team. And I had heard there was a lot of things that were going on behind the scenes, but I had kind of known. And that was a tough pill to swallow. But I remember at the end, our last game actually was in Seattle, and they didn't even travel half the guys. So like half the guys didn't even go. And I remember sitting there like in the locker room and feeling kind of that what you just said, like, dude, it's like us against them. Like all of us knew we were getting fucking cut. And it was
yes,
like you don't even have the common courtesy to like bring the guys. And it gave me I was never like I tried to pay attention, but I as a rookie, I'd be like, okay, sweet, like I'm done. I can shut her down. But it made me happy that like the other years I would pay attention to like root guys on because it's not a fun place to be when you're in the fourth preseason game and you're out there and no matter what happens in this game, you're getting cut. You can play the world's greatest game, but you're basically showcasing like, hey, I'm out here to ball out so that somebody else can see. And what was tough for me though was like, and I don't know if you found this, but a lot of times if you didn't have a quarterback that was like on the ball, which was kind of hit or miss some of the years, it was like, I'm assuming for you, it'd be like, hey, if this quarterback calls the wrong protection or doesn't ID it right, I don't know if you were making the IDs or whatever, I'm going to look like shit. And like for me, it'd be like, yo, if this quarterback throws this ball in Timbuktu, like we had a guy one year that had a hard time calling the cadence. And it's like the whole offense looks like shit now. And I'm like, dude, like you're fucking everybody. It's kind of wild how that, like, if you don't do your role in those moments, it still affects so many things.
Oh, 100%. You in the fourth quarter, like, hopefully, like, I learned as I went along in, like, year 3 and 4 and, like, as I got older, like, you needed to talk those guys up and, like, keep their confidence high, like, "Hey, man, like, we got this. Like, we got this. Like, let's go out there. Don't panic. I know this is first game you've been out here. Like, let's not panic. Let's get out there. Let's complete some balls. Let's get some first downs, and let's make it
Yeah.
exciting." But on the flip side, I was gonna say when, so that year that you wouldn't have played in those preseason games, you get your first quarter or whatever. Like, I was the guy that would pick the slack up for when the starter wouldn't play in those preseason games. So, like, if you're not playing the first one, all right, well, Brett, you're going in the second quarter to the fourth, so you got a whole game here. That was always that was thinking, all right, well, I'm gonna get some more plays. But by the time the third preseason game will roll in, you get a time off, obviously, because you play more in those third ones. But like, I'd have like 120, 180, 200 snaps in a preseason. So, so like
That's a
they, they'd start to
that's
add
a
up.
grind right there.
Yeah. So like the fourth game, like you were tired, but like there's no time to be tired because like boys got to go to work. This is when the money's made.
Hey,
This is when the money's made right now. We got to get out there and get after this. And so,
I
but
love
no,
that.
it,
I
it
love
was a.
that.
I always like as you get older though, you get in the fourth preseason game, like it's crappy or whatever. But like some of those guys aren't as good as the starters. So like you can go out there and you can do
Ball
some good
out.
stuff, and you
Yes.
get some good stuff out there. So.
Yeah, especially if for me it was the run game. Like I remember one of my early years, it's like the first play of the game, and we call 18 force, which was our version of wide zone.
Oh, wait.
But I'm
Yeah.
motioning to it as a tight end. We're playing Denver. And I motion over there and I've got Von Miller sitting on the fucking end. And I'm like, bro, and the way they had aligned where he was outside, basically they were they'd call it a G inside. I know everyone has different terms,
Yeah.
but the tackle and the guard were working together. And I'm soloed up on fucking Vaughn. Like I don't
It's a
even
good
have
scheme.
inside
Good scheme.
help. Yeah, good scheme, exactly. And I'm sitting there, and I remember I kind of stalemated him. Like I brought everything to the table, and you could tell he was like, "Bro, this is like the first preseason play. Like I ain't trying." It was
Mhm.
just a stalemate, and I was so amped. And then all of a sudden, I go in to get my grade, and my coach gives me a plus minus, and it's like, "Yo, dude, like you didn't really get any movement here." I'm like, "What the fuck, man?" I'm like, "You go out there and block Von Miller giving up 25 pounds, motioning over, so I'm also giving him a yard of room to play with." But then again, on the flip side, later in my career, when I was playing later into a few of these games, I'd be like, "Man, I got a bunch of like undersized rookies. I'm just gonna fucking tee off on up here and talk all this shit to." So there was some fun moments kind of in those plays. What about here's so now we go from New York to Minnesota. Somehow our guy co-host Belly, there he is, went blurry for a sec. I don't know
We're
what
back.
happened.
We're back.
We're back. New York to Minnesota. How was that transition as far as like free agency goes? And then was there a stark difference in how Minnesota ran their organization versus the Giants?
Yeah. So I actually got traded.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't
So I
realize you
got
were part of
I
a
got
trade.
Yeah.
yeah. So essentially, I went from undrafted to a seventh round pick. That's how I always view my career now. I got traded for a seventh round pick. So the Giants made good on an undrafted guy. But no, I got traded that year, and so that was so I had signed a 3-year deal. So this is the fourth year, and so I actually got the second round tender as an undrafted guy because, like, again, that's a whole nother topic. If you want to talk weird stuff, is how it works if you're undrafted, like how long it takes you to get to free agency, because you'll go from whatever your 3-year deal to restricted free agent to unrestricted. So it's a long
Yeah,
battle before you get to
interesting.
unrestricted
Yes.
free agency. But no, I got traded, and so I was there up until the third preseason game with the New York Giants, and then in the middle of a practice, I'm out there. They come up and they're like, "Yo, Brett, we just traded you to Minnesota." And so
Did
I'm
you have
like,
any idea you were on the trading block?
"Well, yeah." So the year before, I had ended the year like I had started games because our starter had gotten hurt, and so I came in, and so we got a new regime, and like I know you've been with different regimes and stuff. It
Yeah.
like totally changes the way they view you, especially as an undrafted guy. Like they didn't owe nothing to me, and so this new regime comes in. We're gonna make sweeping changes, and like the easiest guy to replace is like the undrafted guy. So that was me, and
Gotcha.
so I got
Hmm.
moved on from, and so like I was just sitting there in the second string, and so they traded me to Minnesota. They had an injury at the time, and so yeah, it was after the third week I show up to Minnesota and they're like, we're playing the Tennessee Titans, and they're like, I've been there for 5 days, and like early on, they're like, yeah, you're not going to play much, and then by the time I got to the game, I played the entire game basically. So it was just like I'd been there for 5 days, and so the offense was
That's
similar because
wild.
the OC had come from Minnesota as Pat Shermer to New York, and so I
Yep.
sort of knew the scheme and whatever. And so yeah, 5 days in, I was out there playing a game, and then I started week one versus the 49ers. So it was it was a crazy transition at that time.
And
But
you guys were good. I mean, now did you find a big difference between, again, this is more of a personal question for me, but I found it interesting later in my career where it was like, wow, how Seattle, like I spent my first 5 there, and then 6 in Detroit couldn't have been more polar opposite of how things were run. And then 7 started in Oakland, ended in Seattle, and even Oakland was very, very different than anywhere else I'd been. And then my 8th year, I had a cup of coffee in Baltimore, spent the majority of it in Seattle, and even that, it was just very peculiar how wildly different all of those teams were run from top to bottom. Was that the same between Minnesota and New York for you, or were there a lot of similarities?
yeah, definitely from year to year, you get different coaching staffs. A lot
Yeah.
of I had the same front office structure in a lot of those years. And so that was always consistent, but it's just year to year the coaching that you're going to get and like how they're going to treat you and how they treat all your other teammates and like the structure that they put in, whether it's a player led team or it's a coach led team. And so with the Giants, it was a coach led team, and so was the Vikings. And so those things were pretty consistent. But over time, you just see like the difference in coaching. That like so, I went to Gary Kubiak had come in the second year we were in Minnesota, and just the difference you'd see just offensively, like the philosophy and scheme and the way the players like you highlight your best players and you hold them accountable and do those things, and like it just makes the whole world a difference. Like it's just sometimes you see like how like if you watch the 49ers the last few weeks, like Kyle Shanahan, there's a reason why he comes from that tree. Like they're so good. And so
Yeah.
it's just consistency and you just see it year in and year out. The results speak for themselves. But I know in my experience, like those teams were very similar. They're really well run. They treat the players well. They give you a lot of advantages, whether that's in the treatment room, whether that's in the lunchroom and stuff like that, or just giving you stuff at the end of the day. So both organizations were top notch, in my opinion. So that was really cool.
Okay. So I know we're getting close to the end here. Belly, I know you got a couple questions. I'm gonna ask him one more football question, then we'll get into some fun stuff and we'll shut her down. Putting you on the spot here a little bit, Brett. What was your favorite thing about being in the NFL? And on the flip side of that, what was your least favorite thing about your time in the NFL?
Okay. Uh, I think the best thing about being in the NFL is when you play with the best people in the world. They're just that, they're people. And so a lot of the time we put them on pedestals and those things, like they're just people. Like they all have problems, they all have stuff going on in their lives. They all have like again, they have all these things, and like you don't realize that as being a fan or somebody on the sidelines or not being able to be in there, but like uh I had guys who were superstar players and they know your name. And like for me as an undrafted guy, 52
Yeah.
or 53 of 53 on the roster, he knew my name and he would come in, we'd talk and we'd hang out and we'd do stuff. And like that was so cool to me. And as I moved up, as I got older or whatever, and you become friends with them and like just realize they're just people. And like those are some of my lifelong friends. We still do stuff together. Uh, and so yeah, that was the coolest thing. It's just the friendships you make. Yeah, it's a business, but if you treat it like that, it's gonna your time's gonna be short and it's not great. And I know you didn't do that. And so when you treat it like you have these friends and you do these things, like it makes it a lot more human, and it makes the mundane and the grind of the game sort of pass it by.
What an
And then
answer.
if
I
I'd
love that. I love that.
yeah, and so like the worst part for me was always just being away from everybody. And so like that COVID year was brutal. Not seeing anybody for 6 or 7 months and not being able to go home and do that stuff. Like I have a great family and a lot of people I really love at home and stuff like that. And so I was always away. And so like I would just rent a little 2-person apartment. I never really set up shop down south, which probably I should have, which definitely I sort of regret that. I should have just stayed down in the US and did that stuff. But I always would come home in the summers and do that stuff. And because I just missed everybody, and I like to be home and be all this stuff and share the experience. That was again another thing I talk about a positive, just sharing the NFL with
Yeah.
everybody. Like it's so cool. Like when people come to the game to watch you at the same time they're watching Eli Manning or Odell Beckham or something like that. Like that was always the coolest to share that with people. But there wasn't a ton of negatives, but it was always just the business side. Obviously, you've seen it.
Yeah.
You get tossed to the side, and you always feel like you could contribute more. But when it's your time, and you definitely miss being out there on Sundays and being out there on Monday and Wednesday. Like Wednesday practice, it's gonna be a grinder, but I miss those days. Those are fun. So
Yeah. I'm with you. I mean, Brett, I again, I don't know what my guy Bally's got cooked up for you right now, but that's kind of it for the football chat side of stuff for me. I want to say again, though, I think it's dope, and I know we got a lot of Canadians that listen to this. And to me, like your just journey from Saskatchewan to the CFL to balling, bro. Like you were balling in the league, dude. I didn't even realize you were traded. I mean, it's just a cool like story. It was something that I was thinking about. I think about often. I've told Luke Bellis this before, but when I got drafted, one of my next door neighbor across the street came up to me and was like, "Hey, statistically, you had a better chance of becoming a brain surgeon than being an NFL draft pick." I'm like, I mean, I did not know that. But I mean, think about the stats for you, man. I not a math whiz. I'm not going to try and crunch them, but the idea that like you came from where you came from again, like didn't go to a prep school, like went in Saskatchewan, just grinded your way. Like how many times did I fourth preseason game in there, took all the snaps, balled out against Cincinnati, laid out the middle linebacker, got my foot in the door, climbed your way up. Like that to me is what the real NFL is. Are stories like yours, as much as everybody loves like, and so do I, like the perennial all stars. The NFL is made up of like true football players like yourself, man. And I think that you're just such a great representation, not only for Saskatchewan but for the entire country, dude. So I'm amped. I know Belly's got some fun questions, but dude, again, I was telling these guys, producer Alec, Mark's on here before. I'm like, I fucking love Brett Jones, dude. He's like the epitome of just a hard nosed football guy from Canada, and I'm really glad you got to come on here, man. So thank you, and Belly, let's go, dude. I know you got something cooking over there. What do we got for him? You're not off the hook yet, bro. We got a couple more questions for you.
Let's do it. This Ryerson journalism degree is getting put to use here. Brett, so like I've been dying to know, you were at the center of a pretty big controversy with the Giants 6 years ago. Eli Manning's Iron Man streak gets snapped. Geno Smith gets that spot start. You were his starting center that game. What was that like being in the middle of that moment, right? Because that's a national talking point. This isn't just, a backup quarterback getting this. This is an Iron Man streak from a historic quarterback, a 2-time Super Bowl winner. Like, what was that like being the center and on that team during that time?
Yeah, that's when you really realize that this is business. This game is business. Like the coach, hey, we got to make a change. Like we got to do something. We're not winning, and I mean, the older guys sort of understood the magnitude of it. I didn't really understand as much at the time, but like I was going out there because like, hey, this is my other opportunity to get out here and start. We got to go play the Oakland Raiders here, and but no, it was crazy, and like it's so cool to see Geno back playing because like again, that was a horrible position to be put in for Geno at the time. Like, yeah, I'm out here replacing Eli Manning in his Iron Man streak, and like we didn't do super great that day in Oakland. So like, but no, like, yeah, that was so weird. I think they fired Ben McAdoo the next day. So there was sort of the writing was on the wall, and it was just weird that they went that direction with Eli and they sort of treated him like that. It was odd. I just say that it was odd.
Yeah,
and everyone felt it. Like we were down so many starters on offense and defense, and here we are taking Eli out. Yeah, I don't know. Everybody was just sort of confused.
Was the option of sending him out there for like the opening drive and then pulling him something that like, because I feel like if like, I mean, I wasn't a former NFLer, but I did play a little bit of hockey and baseball growing up. I feel like if I was in that locker room, I'd be looking around like, why aren't we starting him? What the fuck's going on? But I guess you guys are just taking the orders and
Well, when you're sort of like that gladiator, right? Like you're
Yeah.
not going to send the gladiator out there just so you can chalk up another. I was in the fight. Like that's not what they're going to do. If Eli's going to go out there, he's going to go out and play and compete
Yeah.
and be the best that he is because he was one of the best of all time. So he's not going to ask them like, "Hey, I want to keep my streak alive." Like that's not something he's going to do, even though he probably would have wanted it. But like he was never going to say that. He was a true leader, and like if that's what the team needed, that's what Eli would have done. Like he was the New York Giants. So it was just sad to see, especially an icon or a figure like that. I think there was a billboard afterwards, like, "Why would you do this to Eli?" or something. Like it was a crazy time being East Rutherford. So
And
it
then,
was
so I got questions about two wideouts you played with. I'm a huge Odell Beckham Jr. guy. Could you just could you just talk about him for a minute? I don't care what you say. I would just like to hear a former teammate just talk about him. What was he like? Just talk to me about Odell Beckham Jr. I just want to hear stuff.
again, he gets like the worst rap from people, like, and then he has stuff that goes on, obviously, that's negative in the media, but whatnot. But in a locker room, there's not going to be a better dude. I thought when he was in his time in New York, like he was at the top. Like when you're doing well in New York, you can do well anywhere. Like as the old saying is. So he was at the top, the pinnacle of sport, and like he but still he'd come in and he was one of those guys that like he knew my name. And he'd come in, we talk, and we talk about like his. I like to collect Jordans and stuff, and so we talk about shoes, and so I wear different Jordans, and he would talk about it. And he'd always ask me about my shoes, and uh, he even gave us all a pair of like his own shoes, and like he signed my box and did all that stuff, and like he was pumped to do it. And so like he never made you feel like you weren't a part of the team or his friend or anything like that. And so I always thought that was cool. And so I don't like when they speak negatively of me because like negative of him because like he always was so cool to me and like so cool to everybody on the team and like he was the best. That was the thing at the time. Like there was not really anybody better than him. And so I love my time with Eli or with Odell. That was the coolest. So
Have
he,
you
yeah.
uh have you always been as like would you consider yourself a sneakerhead?
Oh yeah, yeah. So like my time in the CFL, that's where I started to learn about it because all the guys from down south that they'd have their shoes, and
Yeah.
so the guys who are Americans. So in the CFL, you have the Americans and Canadians, and they would have Jordans, and so they showed them to me, and like this would be cool. And so that was it. So I started collecting them, and yeah, I've done it ever since like 2013. So
What would you say is your most prized possession in that collection?
um, I have some cool pairs. So like I actually have cool stories. Like I have a pair of Supreme Camo 5s I got from a guy on eBay one time. That was early on in the sneaker game with eBay was the thing. So I have Supreme Camo 5s. And like I try not to pay a ton over retail. I do not like the resale game. I think it's the worst. But so I always try to find ways to get them on drops. I got like Union 4s, so I got those on a drop. Uh Sneakers is the bane of my existence, but whatever.
Can
As
I
everyone
break your
everyone
heart with something right now, Brett?
yeah, yeah.
So this has happened somewhat recently. I don't even know if Luke Bellis knows this one, but it's interesting. I didn't realize you were into this stuff. I kind of fell out of it, but there was a 4-year period where I was like cannonballed into the Jordan game, and I was signed with Nike at the time. We had this little site where whenever the drops came, I don't know if you remember this Nike Elite they used to call it. You could log onto your
I was a
thing,
Nike Elite guy. So the
guy. So
trade
that's
that
how you got into
that
it.
was dope. I got yeah. So me and the equipment staff were good buddies, and they were able to
Yep.
get me a deal one year. I got $2,000.
Okay.
I was a
So you're
Nike
gonna
I was a
appreciate
Nike athlete.
this.
So yeah, we're one and the
Yeah,
same. I
that
was a Nike
counts.
athlete.
I
Yeah,
might have signed a 3-year, $90,000 Nike deal, merch only.
yeah. A little
I
bit
was
different than
buying
my two
shoes
thousand
like a
bucks, but
maniac. 30 grand of shoes a year on this little account. And it was like, bro, every single Jordan drop, got him, got him, got him, got him. That was on that site. Well, now all of a sudden you have 60, 70 pairs of Jordans. I didn't know where to put them. I kept the box, etc. When I shipped everything home, my parents, this is where the heartbreak comes in. My parents put in a storage unit with a lot of my other stuff, and some crackheads in Windsor broke in like 7 months ago and sniped
no.
all my fucking Jordans, bro. They're all
Oh, and the worst
gone.
part is that all those shoes would be worth double now, probably at least.
Yes.
Especially if
Yes.
they're
So
DF.
it was a heartbreaker. I did have some insurance on the unit, so I didn't get a little bit of cash back, but beyond the point. Like, and I had like some cigar sixes, a lot of the infrareds, almost every set of 11s
Oh,
he
yeah.
dropped at
Yes.
Christmas.
That's the
Yeah.
13, 14 years. Those are, that's right when I started. Cigars, champagne sixes, cigar six,
Yes,
pack.
yes,
Yeah.
dude.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Luke,
Tough. So,
I thought you were about to tell us your unit ended up on an episode of Storage Wars. I was going to be like,
Yeah.
no,
holy
They actually
shit.
forgot to
no,
pay it. They
so
forgot to pay it.
Yeah.
if you if
Could
you're
make
in
a
Windsor
payment.
and you see some questionable individuals rocking size 13 Jordans, just know that they're probably mine.
Yes.
Duly
Yeah.
noted. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Brett, your time with the Vikings, I was a big 96 questions guy
Okay.
with the
Yes.
locker room stuff.
Yeah.
Why? I need to ask the question. Why did no one on that roster want Stephon Diggs to date their sister? What?
Well, I don't know. I think it went on the show probably for a reason, but no. Again, I played like Stephon, cool dude. Super secretive outside the building, so
Wow.
you didn't really know what he was doing outside there. So I'll just leave it at that. But no, again, another guy. He's a top tier competitor, and like those things always show up on Sunday where like you're sort of question that, but in the locker room, good dude. Good dude.
Cool.
He was actually him and I like were one locker away from each other in Minnesota. So I got to know Stephon pretty good. He had a StockX deal, which I thought was like the coolest. So he was
That
able
would
to
be
get
tight.
he could get any shoe. That was
If there's one shoe right now that you wish you would have gotten or still wish, what would it be?
I'm a big 3 guy. I really like 3s. So like some of just those original 3s, like the white cements or whatever, like from I don't know what year they
Yeah.
were, but I love white cement 3s. I thought they were the coolest. They've restocked and done different ones, but like the OG ones are always better.
Yeah, agreed. If for me,
I
it's
couldn't
Joe
fit
Drizzly.
ones.
That's fair. Were you an 11s guy at all?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I had a pair of OG Bread 11s.
Yes. That's so
Those
cool.
were I was pretty
Space
well
Jams,
now
Gammas were cool. That was a cool
I had the
colorway.
Gammas as well.
Yeah.
I wore those quite a bit. I mean, now again, some crackhead has it, but it is what it is.
They look good on. I bet you they look good on them. That's
no question. The one shoe that I tried so hard to get, and they were like, "Nah, bro, there's no." And I went through like every string. Do you remember when Nike released the Back to the Future?
The Air Mags.
Yes. And they were like, there's like only 5 of them. And I remember Travis Kelce showed up to like a charity event with them on. And I was like, that makes sense. I mean, if there's a guy who deserves to get them, it's Travis Kelce.
Yes. Those pairs are unreal. Like those ones are like one-on-ones, or those ones are super cool. Same with like the Dior ones. Those ones are cool. Like
Bro, I didn't realize you
like
got a sneakerhead, man.
Yeah. That was always I was super unsuspecting. Here I'd roll in a gray t-shirt and a pair of sweatpants, and then I'd ask about their shoes, and they're like, how do you know about that? Like, you're from Saskatchewan. Like, how do you know about that? And we talk about it. So that was always a cool thing. It's the bridge in that locker room. Like, everybody's from different backgrounds, different places. Like, shoes would bring you together. So, like, that's why I love the shoe game, because, like, it was something you could talk about with anybody.
Yeah. Well, I know we got 2 minutes. Belly, you got one last thing you got for him, or we shut it down?
Well, I got one last question. It's Super Bowl
like
week.
that.
I feel like we wouldn't be doing our jobs here, Brett. I'm gonna need a winner here for this game. What do you like on Sunday? Eagles Chiefs.
Well, it's tough as a former Giant and playing in Philly and experiencing that fan base every year. It's a tough one. So it's obviously gonna jade you in ways you wouldn't really think when you'd see the old lady flipping you the bird as you take the bus out of there. It's a different experience, and you can't really talk about a different experience. So, but I will probably have to. I like the Eagles this week. I think it's a cool story with the Kelsey brothers or whatever, but the Eagles' offensive line, again, if you're going to root for a team, I like watching how they play. They play so fast, physical. Their schemes are really neat. They're simple. But the way Jalen Hurts just adds that extra dimension, it's hard to cover. It's hard to contain. I mean, what the statistics of like the Russian stuff, like when he's in the game, when he's not, like it's hard to defend. And so the NFL, with how big and fast they are, having that slight advantage, that's all you need with that top tier talent. So I like the Eagles this week. That's what I'd say. And then
I'm riding with
defensively,
you.
I played those guys. So Fletcher Cox, dog. Brandon Graham, dog.
Dog.
Javon Hargrave, dog.
Dog.
Like you go 8 guys deep. Like Linval Joseph, that's my guy. Linval and I with the Vikings.
Dog.
Yeah.
Bro, when he was with you in Minnesota, that dude was disgustingly good.
And if you thought that the game he was going hard, you should have seen him in walkthrough. He would come out with an arm brace and gloves, and he'd be going to town.
Those guys
And so
those
backup guys, like Linval and I eventually got to a good working relationship, but early on, like he'll head slap you in a walkthrough. But hey, Linval's going 110 at all times. But the big goon. That's
incredible.
That's his Instagram That's his Instagram handle. So he's a great guy though. Like, but I love playing with him. But like practice and walkthrough was the absolute worst. And so like if especially when we get new guys in, because they'd be in the he would show them, like, introduce them. This is the NFL in a walkthrough, and you'd be like, "Hang on, man, don't poke the bear." But yeah, so again, obviously cheering for Linval. I'd love him to win a ring. That'd be super cool. You got Ndamukong Suh. Like again, like you just got over and over. So
yeah,
it's a good team, man. It's a good team.
Yeah, ball's gonna get out fast. That's for sure.
That's all I got, Luke.
Well, Brett, again, thank you very much for this. We're gonna slap it. I got a nice photo of us post game when I was in New York.
Hell yeah.
I don't know if you remember that one.
Do
So
we have the flag? Do we have the Canadian flag? Well, you'd have to. I mean, NFL Canada's got to get that. Like, if it was for that, right? So
that's right. That's right. But again, bro, I can't thank you for coming on here. Need it for the gram.
Seriously.
I love it, and I'm sure we'll be in touch soon, bro. But again, thanks for coming on here. This was awesome. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Brett. Real quick, any Instagram or like Twitter handles that we can?
No, I'm not a social. I don't do social media stuff. It's just it's too toxic. Saskatchewan.
Couldn't agree with you more.
I don't like that. I don't like to post about myself, but maybe someday. Maybe I'll make my little shoe collection and I can post new photos or something. Make it fun. But no, we didn't even get to talk how I met your brother. That was a cool one too. So that was neat.
We might have to do episode 2 soon, man. And the Brett Jones continuation soon.
We're gonna have to do this again.
That was
G Willie.
That's how I knew. That's how I knew him as, because we'd play online together. So that was it.
G Willie, man. It's funny. No, I know we're gonna go, but no one ever called him that. No one ever called him that. All of a sudden, I started hanging around with his college buddies, and everyone's like, "Bro, you're G Willie's brother?" I'm like, "Who the fuck is G Willie?"
Yeah, who is this character? Yes. No, literally, that was G Willie. That's all I knew him as until I met him.
I love that. All right, bro. Good shit. I'm gonna end this real quick. I know Bell's got a call. He's already on bad behavior. You guys get going.
Have fun at the Super Bowl. That'll be cool.
Yeah, hopefully. And we'll chat. We'll be in touch, Brett. Belly, I told you, man. I mean, the dude's electric, bro.
That was great.
That was
I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed just sitting back. I got to listen. Got to ask some questions. That was fun. We're gonna have to have him back. He was. 100%. I feel like we didn't get into like anywhere near enough. So
it's because I was fangirling, man. And we'll get him back. And now that I've got my fangirling out of here, we'll have to talk more casually.
The curveball at the end of him being a sneakerhead was just like I didn't see, and he even said something like, he walks in the rooms and he asks about the shoes. I was like, yeah, I'm like that would catch me off guard too. Like, you're a sneakerhead? What do you mean?
What a legend, dude.
That was a fun thing to stumble into. And so he likes the Eagles. We both like the Eagles. We've been on the Eagles for a while. And I'm glad that I'm not talking myself out of this Philly team. They seem legit on both sides of the ball. And I know it's Mahomes, but I can't get there with Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm on that vibe too. I mean, what was kind of fun for me, Luke, on a selfish note with that chat, was like a lot of times I'll do some of the Sports Center stuff and I'll have these like takes when we're like not on camera, and everyone will kind of look at me like, like I get it, like, and then it's like, I remember going on Jay and on Sports Center and talking about Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, and I know we've had these chats.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like you get an NFL lineman in there who was in the division for a bit. Yeah. When he's like, Linval Joseph, dog. And I'm like, that's kind of how we all think, like, because we know that when you have that kind of, and he talked about the Eagles O-line too, when you have that kind of strength of a defensive line or an offensive line, how much that can really control a game. You know, what that ability allows you to do. Even, you know, as an O lineman that can pass protect, you know, the ability to run routes that take longer to develop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like a lot of times I remember we would sit back there and they'd be like, oh, they'd yell at Darryl Bevel or Brian Schottenheimer in Seattle, be like, we don't have enough shots down the field. We don't have this, we don't have that. Well, it's like, it's not that simple. If we have a banged up O line and we're getting crazy pressures, how the hell are we going to run a 30-yard route? Or, you know,
Yeah.
it ain't happening. But anyways, Brett Jones, what a legend, man.
It's funny to see that you get the like same reassurance from him that I get from you. Like for me, it's like, you know, when I met you and you walk in the door week 3 and you're like, yo, Colts money line. I'm like, oh shit, like this guy, he sees what I'm seeing. That's weird. So to hear you're like, dude, like when an O-line, I'm like, yeah, like I know that feeling. That's been the last 6 months of my life. So this was a fun episode, dude. This was a fun episode. It was a fun way to kick off Super Bowl week, I think. Brett was just the best. I love Brett.
He's incredible. Every time I've spoken to him, he's just been, again, like such a high-class dude.
Yeah.
He's so humble, bro. I keep saying this, but it's like, what a crazy story and a great career. And it's just like, oh, yeah, like, doesn't like to, you know, really
very
talk about how
nonchalant.
great is. Yeah. I'm like, dude, this is cool.
Yeah, I was Eli Manning's center for a couple years. No big deal. It's like, kind of is. Kind of sick.
Dude. Yeah,
so we're going to be back later in the week. We're going to have a betting preview. We're going to have some guests. We're going to do it all this week. We're going to do it up as much as we can. It's Super Bowl week. Why wouldn't we? Luke, as always, sir, thank you for your time. I know you could be doing a lot more stuff in Arizona right now, outside, fun in the sun. But so thank you as always for your time. Thank you to everyone that listened. Producer Alec on the 1s and 2s, Manager Mark, making sure we don't say anything that'll get us canceled. And we'll see you next time.